Good evening. I'm having to come on live again because I tried earlier and I could not be heard properly. So I'm trying again and I hope you can see me and hear me without any issues. My name is Desiree Djanie. I am an advanced hair, scalp, and skin practitioner here in Leicester. I run my business within the space of the three areas, which is the hair, the scalp, and the skin. I enjoy mostly dealing with preventative issues to do with these three subjects because really that is what I love to do. I love to educate people into how to look after their hair, scalp, and skin to avoid issues in the long run. So I have been coming on live for the month of June and I'm discussing these issues or really educating on these matters. I am not a doctor. I am not your doctor. I provide these information and this educational lives for your entertainment and also for your awareness and educational purposes, and that is it. And so if you are having some issues and some concerns, please be sure to go to a professional who can better help you in diagnosis and treatment. Okay, so do not use these videos as a form of diagnosis because really you ought to go and see someone who's going to look at you and physically evaluate and analyze your hair, scalp, and skin concerns. I have been coming on live here to discuss these things for the entire month of June to help people understand some things that they may be experiencing and to help them in getting the right help. Today, I want to discuss matters to do with hair relaxers. It is such a massive topic, such a huge topic, and so I feel that I might need to do this over a couple of multiple episodes. But for tonight, I want to discuss the importance of the truth about relaxers and the importance of a professional application. That is so important because of the fact that we have had some issues concerning relaxers. I don't really want to talk about that today, but I'm aware that it's happening. I'm aware that this is happening, but I'm also aware that people are continuing to have relaxers for their own reasons. And so the discussion around relaxers need to take place. So what are relaxers? Relaxers are products that we use to loosen the curls of anybody's hair. So if you are Black, Hispanic, or even Caucasian, if you're looking to loosen the curl pattern that you have, we use relaxers to do that. And what it does is simply taking rather coily or curly hair down to, curls that are looser. So not necessarily smoothing the cuticles down. That is what we use keratin treatments to do, to smooth down the cuticles and give this frizz-free look. But relaxers are truly to just break down the curl pattern into a looser curl pattern. Now, it is a very caustic treatment in the fact that on the pH scale, so the pH scale that we have, which is potential hydrogen, that scale we have from 0 to, or rather from 1 to 14, and water is neutral on that scale, which is 7. Okay, water is neutral and that is 7. We've got our skin and our hair sitting at 4.5 to 5.5, and then relaxers are somewhere around 13 and 14, if you can imagine. So it's really at the top end of the pH, the potential hydrogen scale, right? So what we're doing is 0 to 7. 7 to 14. So we've got 0 to 7, which is acidic, 7 to 14, which is alkaline on the potential hydrogen scale. So anything that is between 1 and 7 is acidic. Anything that is between 7 and 14 is alkaline, right? And so if a relaxer is sitting on 14, then that means the relaxer is alkaline. 7 is neutral because in the middle, and that's water. And our skin is 4.5 to 5.5, which means it is acidic. So when we're using a relaxer, our hair and skin being 4.5 to 5.5, the relaxer being 14, we are essentially taking a rather acidic thing, matter, all the way to alkaline, which is 14. Yeah, so our skin and hair is acidic because it's 4.5 to 5.5. Relaxers are sitting on 14, 13 or 14 thereabouts. Okay, so we need to be mindful of the fact that it is a dangerous substance to play around with. If you're playing around with a relaxer at home, it is something that you really should consider, you really should reconsider and not be doing so. We've all done it before. Before I became a professional in this space, I dealt with relaxers. I would buy the relaxer from the store and I would apply it for people, families, and for myself, family members, and for myself. And so it isn't unusual that this is what we did, but some people are doing it still. I always say that when we know better, we do better. Now that we know better, if you've heard this live, then you now know better. And so we should start doing better. There are reasons why we shouldn't be dealing with caustic things at home by ourselves, because it can cause highly dangerous effects. Okay. And over a long period of time, if we continue doing those things, we then start to have some issues with that in the later stages of our lives. So when I speak about professionals in this space and why it's important for professionals to handle caustic things and highly technical treatments such as relaxers and lightening of the hair, I speak about that to say that first things first, you cannot really do a proper consultation of your own hair and scalp. As much as you can try to, you are not able to really analyze your scalp properly. It takes somebody standing above you to have a proper look at your scalp and analyze it and really look at what is going on. But what is fundamental most is the fact that the professional does not come with a boxed product. Yeah, so it's a professional treatment, but the professional does not come with it. You cannot make yourself into a professional if you're not, but you're using a professional product. That means it should be handled by a professional. To combat some of the hair loss concerns and hair loss issues that is plaguing the Afro-Caribbean community and also the Hispanic community, it's really important that we realize that relaxers must be handled by professionals. And throughout this series of this relaxer series, you will start to realize why that is so important. Okay, so a relaxer is important to be handled by a professional because the professional gets a full view of the hair and scalp and gets to really analyze your hair properly, right? And the professional does not come with a box that you buy from the store. So you are not trained to handle relaxers. You mustn't handle relaxers. To some extent, even in hairdressing school or beauty school, for example, relaxers aren't really taught properly. There is a mild discussion around the subject, but the true practical experience isn't given. It wasn't given to me, And I don't know anyone else that it was given to, truly. If there was a tutor there who was passionate about their job and also passionate about relaxers, then they would take that little step further in teaching their students certain things. But I was not taught how to apply relaxers properly. I had to take extensive training myself to be able to know and learn how to conduct relaxers safely. Okay, so the reason why you need a proper professional look onto your hair and scalp is because you need to find a way of choosing the right relaxers for your hair. We have to not only be professionals and analyze the scalp and skin and the hair, but we need to be able to select the right relaxers to match the hair that you have. So if you've got fine hair, we need to choose the right relaxers for it, or perhaps change the levels. If you've got coarse hair, which means the actual thickness of the hair, right? This thickness of the hair is thicker in terms of diameter, then we need to choose the right type of relaxer for you. And also we need to check the porosity. So the porosity is really checking the scales. So if you can imagine the fish scales, the scales on a fish is laying, packed, tightly packed, and you can actually remove the scales by going the opposite direction. The scales of our hair also shows what porosity the hair is. If the scales of the hair is open, then that means that the hair is porous. If the scales of the hair is tightly packed and tightly packed down, then that means the hair has got low porosity. And so that is also important in selecting the right relaxer. So we need to use the right relaxer because we need to choose the right chemical and the chemical strength for the hair that we are doing. Okay? And we need to talk about precision. Precision is so important in relaxers because we want to avoid over-processing. You want to avoid over-processing the hair, because if you do, you cause the hair to lanthionine itself, in the sense that it breaks down and weakens the bond. The bond of the hair becomes weakened. It becomes a lanthionine bond, which means that it's weakened bond. We're talking about the bonds. This is really going into depth with the subject. Okay, so we've got the bonds that are in the hair. We've got the disulfide bonds, the salt bonds, and the hydrogen bonds. The hydrogen and salt bonds, we break them differently, but really with regards to chemical treatments, we will be breaking or altering or modifying those disulfide bonds. Disulfide bonds are the strength, what makes the strength, the core strength of the hair. They are sulfur to sulfur bonds. They are linked, yeah, and they're di because they're called two. They're di because there are two of them, so they're called disulfide bonds. Okay, so disulfide bonds are what we're altering when we're doing chemical treatments, and so we must be very careful. We must be very careful and precise in doing so, because what we can do is weaken those bonds altogether. We no longer then start to alter it. We are now moving into the space of weakening the bonds, right? Okay, so we need to make sure that we are precise so that we don't over-process. We don't want to over-process the hair because it will weaken the hair. We need to make sure that where we have previously relaxed the hair, we are avoiding that area. We don't want to overlap, because overlapping will show signs of over-processing. So if you can imagine, if your hair has been relaxed in the past, so we've relaxed all of this hair, right? And the regrowth, which is in the scalp, so the scalp area, when we are relaxing your hair, what we don't want to do is over-process over to these areas of the hair that has already been relaxed. So when you get your hair relaxed and you notice that you're just having, so if it's not a virgin relaxer, it's not your first relaxer, but it's a root retouch, really, they should only be doing the roots. Whoever's doing it must only do the roots of the hair, not the entire length. So when you notice that the person is pulling that hair relaxer, the product, all the way through the mid-lengths and the ends of the hair, you know for a fact that your hair is going to be over-processed. Now, if the person is doing it, the person should be a professional, so they shouldn't be doing that. And also, if you're doing it, you shouldn't be doing it by yourself, but really more importantly, you should try to avoid overlapping. There is that bliss point, that sweet spot where you're not overlapping, but you're also just making sure that you're getting a continuous relaxer experience throughout the hair shaft. Because sometimes what we find is that in the attempt to avoid overprocessing, some areas aren't actually processed at all. So if you look at the person's hair shaft, you'll notice that there are areas of texture differences where the person has had all of their root retouches, but for the fear of overlapping, the person did not actually hit the mark properly. So this comes with training, and this is some of the training that I provide within the industry for professionals who are wanting to perfect their services. Okay, how to truly relax the hair properly. So we don't want to weaken the hair. But another thing that is really important is that once you've relaxed the hair, what do? We need to be able to neutralize the hair. We've got to be able to take the hair that we have moved from acidic, which is 4.5 to 5.5, over to about 14. We've moved it. So by using the product that is 14 on the potential hydrogen scale, using that product for hair that is 4.5 to 5.5, we're moving that hair over to alkaline, right? So moving that hair over to alkaline means that we are changing the porosity of the hair. The hair was acidic in nature and now is alkaline in nature. And so the porosity of the hair will change. That means the scales that are the fish scales that are on the hair. So imagine this, your hair strand, this very single hair strand. This is it. There are fish scales on the hair strands. When the fish scales are open, the hair is porous. When the fish scales are tightly packed, the hair is low porosity. But because we're moving this hair that may be low porosity, sometimes the hair is already high porosity to begin with, and we are relaxing hair that is high porosity over to even more porous hair, which is also another discussion to have, because that is just such a massive thing to do. Checking the porosity of the hair is so important because you need to know how far you can go. For hair that is already porous, you must be mindful as to what's going to happen, because you can just blast the cuticles open if you take the porosity too far. So for hair that is already porous, if you're now introducing a highly caustic product and high on the pH scale to an already porous hair, that means that the scales are raised. What can happen is you just blast open those cuticles, but also you take chunks off the hair, right? And we don't want that, because what happens then is you end up with rips and tears and split ends in the hair. We can alter these bonds of the hair without causing rips, tears, and splits. It's absolutely possible. With care, we can do this. Okay, so we need to be very, very careful in what we are doing, because just by altering the bonds of the hair, we don't necessarily have to be damaging the hair. But when we are blasting open those cuticles and then we are actually shooting bits of it off, we are then getting to the point where we are damaging the hair. We are no longer altering the hair, but we are damaging the hair, right? So we need to know what to do once we have turned this acidic hair over to alkaline. We need to be able to neutralize it. We've got to be able to bring it back to at least close to where it's happiest. And where is the hair and skin happiest? 4.5 to 5.5. And I said close to because sometimes it's difficult to bring the hair back to where it was. It's virtually impossible. Once you've taken hair that is 4.5 to 5.5 over to 14, between 12 and 14, you are going to struggle to bring it back to 4.5 to 5.5. So the chances are you're going to bring it a little bit closer towards the neutral, or sometimes even towards alkaline. But what we want to do is we want to make sure that we are bringing those pH bonds back to neutral. So what you're doing is, when you've taken the hair from 4.5 to 5.5 over to 14, you've opened those cuticles. They're just open, no blasting, nothing's happened, but the porosity has changed. And so what we need to do is we need to try and close back those cuticles down so that they become tightly packed like the fish scales, okay? They're not raised, but we're closing it down. Closing it down is what we're doing to try and neutralize the hair, bringing it nicely into right towards the acidic point, or neutralizing it to a neutral point, right? So this is a lot to grasp, but it's really, I suppose this video could be useful for someone who's a professional, who's just wanting to really get to grips with what they're doing with relaxers, but also for that person who goes to get a relaxer often to become aware of what is happening. Now, we need to make sure that we are doing this very, very delicately. We need to make sure that we are timing what we're doing. Timing is of the essence. So the manufacturer has stated that you use these products within a certain time. But sometimes we'll find that you go to the hairdressers and they're probably seeing 2 or 3 people, which absolutely makes me very nervous. So if somebody's doing a professional relaxer on you, and they are professionals, you mustn't be left, at least for the time when the relaxer is on your hair, the actual product is on your hair, you mustn't be left alone. That person should be right there conducting the treatment from start to finish, and only leave or look at the potential of leaving only when that product is rinsed off your hair. There is no time whatsoever. I don't know where people think they can find the time to see another client when they're doing a relaxer. I don't quite understand that. There is no time whatsoever. From the moment you've hit that hair with the relaxer, you need to be able to continue with the process, because the timing is just, again, that's because the relaxer is being left on for too long. Mostly that is the issue. The relaxer is being left on for too long and they think they can see somebody else. Sometimes you get the client complaining that it's itchy and it's burning, but the professional might say, just hang on a moment, just hang on, a little while longer. No, that is not what we need to be doing. If the person is struggling and there is an itchy sensation, that is a warning sign. Those itches during a relaxer is the warning telling you that you cannot leave that relaxer on any longer. The relaxer must come out of the hair, must be rinsed out of the hair. Relaxers are not designed to make the hair bone straight. We mustn't seek to relax this hair 100% straight, because that is hair removal stages. When you're seeking to relax the hair that much you're going to remove the hair. It becomes like a hair removal process, which is what we used to do with, you know, the likes of the products that we used to use to remove hair. There were creams, we put it on our skin, we leave it for a couple of minutes. It degrades the hair on the skin or you know, on the legs, and we just scrape it back off and it removes it. A relaxer can act in the same way if it is not handled with care. I've mentioned this before. The product is not the problem. It's who is holding that product, who is managing that product, who's actually using that product. That is the issue. I say that a gun is fine on its own until somebody lifts it up, points it at you, and releases. You know, that is where you have an issue. But the actual gun can just, you know, I don't know much about guns, but what I know is that if you leave a gun sitting there for a while, it's fine until somebody picks it up and aims it and shoots. And so products are fine. It is who is holding this product and their intention when they have this product in their hands. So we must be very careful. Okay. So potential hydrogen, or the power of hydrogen, which is the pH, potential or power of hydrogen. We need to be aware of those things. It's the small p and the capital H. This is what we're dealing with when we're dealing with the hair. We need to look at what canvas we're working on. We need to make sure that the scalp is healthy. We need to make sure that the scalp is well taken care of. We need to make sure that the scalp has been protected. So it has to be healthy, it has to be looked after, and then it must be protected. It must be protected prior to the treatment, during the treatment, and after the treatment. This is so important. This is just so important. And so if we don't do these things, this is where we don't only start to affect the hair by blowing those cuticles open and perhaps removing chunks of the hair shaft. So if I should go back to my model. So this is your hair, okay? And the scales are on the hair. They're tightly packed on the hair. But by using a relaxer, what we're doing is we are raising those cuticles. Those cuticles become raised up, okay? Now, if we don't bring them back down to smooth it down, we end up with hair that is porous, and porous hair, the issue with porous hair is that it can take in moisture, it can take in hydration very quickly, but it can also lose it just equally as quick. So then there's no benefit to it. Okay, you need to learn how to be able to use porous hair or use products for porous hair effectively. It doesn't mean that the hair is no longer healthy. It's just that the hair needs to be managed well. Hair that is now become highly porous, so the cuticle scales are open, does not necessarily mean that it's not healthy. We can still have healthy, manageable hair when we know how to deal with it, even if it's porous. The porosity of the hair doesn't necessarily happen because of treatments such as relaxers. That can happen, that has a space, but there are people who naturally have porous hair. They're born with high porosity hair, and that is also fine. It does not mean that the hair is damaged just because it's porous, right? They're just inherently, the hair is just inherently porous. Okay, so we need to make sure that when we've changed the porosity of the hair and the hair cuticles are raised, yeah, we work towards bringing it down by neutralizing it. Okay, so these boxed relaxers that you buy, I just need to mention that if it has got a child's face on it or an adult's face on it, it does not matter. It is a relaxer. It works exactly the same way. There is nothing different about it. So don't be fooled when you go into the stores and you buy this product and it's got a pretty little girl's face on it and then you're going to use it on your children. No, let's not do that. Okay? Children and relaxers are things that we need to be very, very careful of. Now, I've had a relaxer as a child, and thank goodness I survived it. And it wasn't professionally done, but when we know better, we do better. I am not going to discuss the politics around this. I just want to educate you in knowing what to do when you're trying to deal with relaxers. The box is deceptive. You shouldn't be using a relaxer as a non-professional. And certainly when you're selecting relaxers, you don't look for the pretty little girl's face and say that is a gentle relaxer, and so I'm going to use it and leave it on for hours and hours. So we mustn't leave relaxers on forever. We mustn't see other people. So if you're going to a professional who is dealing with your hair and you find that they are leaving you when a relaxer is on your hair to see to somebody else, you say no. Okay? My videos are to empower you into helping you understand what needs to happen. There are guidelines that we need to follow to make sure that we can do these things as safe as possible. As much as a relaxer is not the most kindest thing you can do, it certainly is not the kindest thing you can do, because I've told you where it is on the pH scale, the power of hydrogen or the potential hydrogen scale, and it isn't the most kindest at all. In fact, it's the most alkaline, one of the most dangerous things that we could be doing to our hair. So it's not kind at all. I'm not here to give anyone a false sense of, feeling that they're doing the right thing for their hair by relaxing their hair. It's not the kindest thing you can do to your hair. And if you don't do it well, it's certainly not the kindest thing that you can do to your scalp either. So we need to be careful. We need to be mindful of what we are doing. And where we can, we get the professional to help. That is what they are there for. I feel like I almost want to end tonight's live on this because, as I've mentioned before, there are plenty more to discuss with this subject. Today, I just wanted to look at the professional side. And even with the professional side, there's plenty more to talk about. A relaxer topic is such a huge, huge mammoth topic. And yet people take it for granted and just conduct it as they wish, right? I don't conduct relaxers on clients or patients' children. So if you choose to bring a child to me and ask me to do a relaxer, I don't do it. I don't tend to want to do it with children over the age. If they've already had a relaxer elsewhere and you are wanting to perhaps move towards a healthier option, we can look at that. But if this is the virgin relaxer, I don't take new clientele on. We look at the potential of easing the child off the relaxer. So most clients that come to me from other sources, or having used relaxers at home or had it done by other professionals, I find that the hair has been over relaxed and the hair is becoming damaged. And so if it's a child of a particular age and we are looking to transition the child over to a non-relaxed state, I can look at that for my clients and so on and so forth. But really, I don't tend to want to do relaxers on children of a particular age. That is a professional decision that I have made. And when I have updated views on these subjects, I do update my protocol and my policies. But as it stands now, I am very strict on certain things, and relaxers are also one of them. Most of my clients who are on relaxers are on what I call the relaxer protocol, and they stay on that protocol and they don't deviate from it, because it's really important to help me as a professional conduct these services with the peace of mind in knowing that nothing is happening to the scalp or the hair, and also that the client is going to be safe and happy with the treatment that they get. So it's non-negotiable. So I'm just going to quickly go over what we discussed here. We discussed what a relaxer is, where it sits on the power of hydrogen, pH scale. We spoke about where the hair is and where neutral is, and so on and so forth. We spoke about what a professional space within the hair industry is concerning relaxers, where the professional stands, why it's important to use a professional with relaxers. So we've discussed that. Yeah. And we've really discussed also things to do with boxed relaxers, and how to make sure that we are using these relaxers properly. Right? In the future, I might discuss things to do with what you should be doing before your relaxer. Yeah. How to look after your hair after you've had a relaxer. What the selection processes should be with relaxers. So how do we match the hair type, the characteristics of the hair to the relaxer? So perhaps, like as I said earlier, these videos might be for the professional. I'm not doing these videos so that you can replace a professional hairdresser. I'm doing these videos so that you're aware of how things happen, to be aware of what should be occurring, what should be happening when you're in the hairdresser salon and this treatment is being carried out. So please do not use the videos to go on and start relaxing your hair. Okay, we discussed the importance of the professional, the fact that they can be precise, they can do a full analysis of your scalp to make sure that your scalp is good. They can assess the strength of your hair. Okay, they can make sure that the formulation is right for you, that they're selecting the right formulas to the hair that you have, to make sure that they are not only selecting the right chemical to the right hair type, but make sure that they are bringing the hair right back down to neutralize the hair, to avoid issues, to avoid porosity issues, to avoid damage, to avoid rips and tears and split ends, and so on and so forth. So this is the place where you're being protected fully as a client, but also your hair is also being protected and looked after. And so by the end of it, you have a healthy scalp, but also hair that is still healthy, that still has a good stretch and return, that we can still live with afterwards. Okay, so I feel like I want to end tonight's live unless there are any questions. There's no one here. A few people, I think a couple of people joined, but they've not asked any questions. And so I'd like to end tonight's live by saying thank you for joining me. Of course, be kind to yourself and trust a professional. Find the right professional that is not only well educated, but highly skilled, and truly a professional that believes in continuous professional development, someone that wants to do the best by you in what they're doing. So they're seeking to always find answers to issues. They're seeking to upgrade and update their current processes. Those are the people that truly move the needle for you with your hair, scalp, and skin. Because there's always advancements into what we are doing. Within the space, there's always advancements in our practices. And so we must always seek to do better. I still engage in education continuously, almost daily, right? And so I leave no stone unturned within this industry. I make sure that whatever I'm doing, I'm following best practices at all times. Okay, so I'd like to leave you here and say, of course, good night, and Goodbye.